Hello, my name is Iñigo Artolozaga, and I'm going to talk about a proposal about a new way of recycling in Distrito Tech. During the last decade, the West is beginning to have a demographic problem. Adults are not having children, and the bulk of the population is growing older. Since the economic power is held by the aging majority, younger people are being ostracized, and these countries are starting to experience a social, economic, and moral stagnancy. There has never been a better opportunity than now for Mexico to modernize itself with haste and start being competitive in the international landscape amongst big European and American players. I myself am an international student from Europe. There, recycling has been a very popular topic of conversation for many years now, and most governments have adapted their country's waste management infrastructure to comply with these ideas. It was a big cultural shock, therefore, when I got to this country and recycling was not as important. Even though studies say that Mexico is one of the best countries in Latin America in terms of percentage of plastic recycled, we can't forget that we live in one of the biggest countries of this continent in terms of population as well as trash produced per capita. So if we deal in absolutes, the amount of not recycled materials in Mexico will be higher than other smaller countries, even if they recycle less in percentage. The main objective of this proposal is not to solve the recycling problem in Mexico overnight. I am not that naive. It also isn't meant to enforce these measures on people. My aim is to be a catalyst and achieve my goal through education and improvement in quality of life. Famous Danish architect Bjarke Ingels said, "There is a misconception that one must give up a portion of their comfortable lifestyle in order to live a sustainable life." I intend to live by this mantra at all times during this proposal. Now, you may be asking yourself, why Distrito Tech in particular? Well, I have not had the chance to visit many places in this country yet. However, from the little I've seen so far, it seems places where a lot of money has been invested flourish the most predominantly. A perfect example of this is the Monterrey campus. Tech is one of the most prestigious academic institutions of this country, so it's normal that wealthy people want to study here. The cash flow in this specific area, therefore, is high, and it can be appreciated easily. The closer one gets to the campus, the nicer the streets look, as well as the businesses and the infrastructure. There are other examples in this city, but I felt this was the most appropriate due to my closeness and familiarity with the location. Additionally, it is my perception that this district is an appropriate place to start innovating in this city. This is because the Distrito Tech project already has significant momentum, and it's likely that people here would be the most willing to adopt these measures that I will propose. In the words of former Tech rector David Ramirez, the project itself was born as a compromise to change the country for the better. Lastly, it is a well-known fact that commitment to save the environment is more prevalent the higher the income is. This is mostly caused by both education and the fact that people with higher salaries can afford to take care of the environment. Of course, if we look at the quote that I intend to base my work on, that I said before, this last reason should disappear. Now, the question may arise, has this been done in other places and how? Well, from my experience, if we want to find out the most efficient way of doing something, the first place we should look at is always Scandinavia. Their economic liberalism, their progressive trade ideologies, and their strong tertiary sector have enabled them to become the most advanced countries in the world, both economically and culturally. In particular, Sweden is famous in the recycling world because its recycling infrastructure is so efficient that the country can get rid of more trash than it produces. So it is currently importing it from other countries with less efficient infrastructure. This all seems very futuristic in paper, but there's a dark side to it. Sweden considers incinerating waste recycling. Sweden is a very cold country, so they very intellectually so decided to incinerate waste and use the thermal output for heating, as well as generating electricity. Other countries look up to this one in terms of recycling, but Sweden's numbers are, of course, inflated by the incineration practice. When recycling is all about processes that give new life to waste and not make them vanish like incineration does. As always, if we delve deeper into seemingly altruistic measures by countries, we find that they're always done with their own country's profit in mind. Sweden, however, is not unaware of the controversy surrounding its practices. The Swedish government is actively pushing new measures every year to improve the system, reduce the incineration percentage, and increase the reusable waste percentage. The image we can see on screen is about a system called NVAC. This Swedish company has spent the last half century researching and developing innovative ways to get rid of waste. As it can be appreciated in the picture, one of their proposed systems would involve having waste classified at the source, depending on the composition, and then propelled through air tubes underground until they reach specific points where a truck would pick them up and then take them to a recycling point. This, of course, would require this infrastructure to be implemented while planning a new city before we build it. Therefore, a system like this would not be practical or affordable in our case. However, the idea of separating waste in the source, then when we throw it in the containers, is one we can work with in our proposal. Another place worth looking into is the Netherlands. This European country has a province called Overijssel, and it has a company called 20 Milieu, which is co-owned by 8 municipalities of the Overijssel area. This company has streamlined this region's waste management effort enormously. What they did was very simple. They put color-coded, barcode-tracked containers in front of everyone's houses and asked them to throw different types of waste in them according to the color. If citizens failed to do so, the barcode would be scanned by the trash collectors and the incident would be reported to the correspondent municipality. This is a perfect way to hold individual citizens accountable for their recycling. However, it would be a good idea to consider the risk of implementing such an aggressive measure right off the bat in Mexico, especially to citizens who historically haven't felt directly accountable for their recycling actions and just did it out of altruism and compromise, just like in Mexico. Additionally, while convenient, it is not the most aesthetically pleasing option to have multiple trash containers in front of everyone's house's door. Moving on, perhaps a more realistic solution could be Spain's implementation. As we can see in the picture in the screen, their system involves putting color-coded trash containers instead of in everyone's door, near everyone's street and bigger ones, so that all neighbors in the street can throw their separated waste into each of those neighborhood containers. This method is convenient because it allows for garbage trucks to simplify their routes because they don't have to travel through every street. And we don't have to invest in as much infrastructure as the Swedish approach. However, the element of accountability that we find in the Dutch system is not present here, so people wouldn't feel as responsible if they didn't recycle. Nevertheless, it encourages for separating garbage types without sacrificing in the convenience we now enjoy. And now let's jump into my proposal for Distrito Tech. In my opinion, it would be a good approach to keep it simple at first, because it is not very wise to overwhelm people with radical changes, as it might encourage the rejection from the public. The main proposal would consist on 2 sections: the infrastructural part and the educational part. If we talk about the infrastructural part, it would consist on placing colored containers in key points of the Distrito Tech. We can see an example in screen. Ideally, these containers should not be far from anywhere in Distrito Tech. What this means is like if you live anywhere in Distrito Tech, there should be a container no further than a 5-minute walk from your house, for example. These containers should also be like well indicated with explanatory signs near them for like easy use. Also, of course, we would need a new network of garbage trucks to be implemented. And these trucks should go around collecting the garbage from the containers. A good choice would be to have several trucks, and each one of them should be specialized in a different type of waste. So there would be a paper specialized truck, a plastic truck, organic waste truck, so on. This would be useful to streamline the logistics and make the process as efficient as possible. So that's for the infrastructural part. Then if you go to the educational part, that would be the job of the tech. The tech could contribute by habilitating a space for learning about the process of recycling, also see what other countries have done to solve this, what we can do individually to solve this problem, but also what we can do as a community to solve this issue. Also, they could even go as far as to introduce courses for students in tech related to recycling and sustainability in general. This would be useful because it would encourage capable students to want to know more about the topic, since of course there would be like an academic credit reward involved. How would we get people involved in this campaign? We would make use of volunteers from tech. These volunteers would be in charge of organizing events all over the public areas in Distrito Tech, in which they could teach neighbors about the importance of recycling, and also give informative resources to adults. And for children, they could make, for example, recycling competitions to get them involved and make them see it as a game. In conclusion, Mexico is not alone in this endeavor. Every country is struggling and working hard to ensure that recycling quota objectives are being met, and that those challenges grow in ambition every year. As individuals, our impact may not be noticeable, but if we unite and spread these ideas, we can make our voice louder and we can make an important change in the world. Here at Tech, we must feel responsible for leading a change in morals and ideals in our country, and being champions in innovation and environmental consciousness. We, as the younger generations, must strive to see past the immediate profit or benefit and think about the long-term consequences our actions have on this planet. We should ask ourselves, how useful is preparing for the future when we don't know if there will ever be one? Thank you.